suicide maintained his dignity and wisdom to the end because he deeply understood where his true power lay. In his words, some things are within our control, while others are not. Within our control are our opinion, aspiration, desire, aversion, and, in a word, our own actions. Not within our control are our bodies, property, reputation, position, and, in a word, all things that are not our own actions. The beauty of this approach is that it works equally well for the gigantic challenges of emperors and the everyday challenges you face. Whether it's an important presentation at work, a complicated relationship, a financial issue, or a health crisis, the principle remains the same. Clearly identify what you can and cannot control, and then invest 100% of your energy in the controllable aspects. This doesn't mean you become indifferent to outcomes. You still care deeply about your career, relationships, and well-being. The difference is that you channel this care in a way that truly serves your goals rather than sabotaging them. You care productively rather than destructively. This is just the first layer of the Stoic transformation you will experience. In the following chapters, we'll see how to apply these principles to specific situations that test your confidence, how to mentally prepare for any challenge, and how to turn obstacles into springboards for growth. If you're feeling the depth of these concepts and want to continue this journey of self-discovery, leave a like to show me you're committed, and get ready to discover how the Stoics turned failures into triumphs. Chapter 2. Turning failures into FUL. There's a secret that separates people with extraordinary confidence from people with ordinary confidence, and it's hidden in how they interpret failures, rejections, and setbacks. While most people see these events as evidence of their inadequacy, practitioners of Stoicism have developed a mental skill that transforms every obstacle into an opportunity for empowerment. This is the art of Stoic perception, based on the principle that it's not the events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about those events. Epictetus taught this with crystal clarity. Men are not disturbed by things, but by their views of things. This isn't just an abstract philosophical observation. It's a practical tool that can completely revolutionize your relationship with challenges. Think about the last time you faced significant rejection, perhaps in a job you really wanted, a relationship you valued, or a project you'd invested a lot of time and energy in. What was your first reaction? Probably a mix of disappointment, questioning your own worth, and an inner voice whispering that maybe you're not good enough. This is the natural and understandable response of the untrained human mind, but it's a response that undermines your confidence and sabotages your future chances of success. The Stoics developed a radically different approach that transforms these same experiences into sources of power. When Marcus Aurelius faced military defeats or political crises, he didn't indulge in self-pity or destructive questioning. Instead, he applied a series of powerful questions that redirected his mind to the constructive aspects of the situation. What can this experience teach me about strategy? How can I use this knowledge to make better decisions in the future? What aspects of my character were tested and revealed? Where can I improve my preparation or execution? This isn't a form of denial or superficial wishful thinking. It's a rigorous mental discipline that extracts real value from difficult experiences. It's the difference between being defeated by an obstacle and being educated by it. Let's apply this practically. Imagine you gave an important presentation that didn't go as planned. You stuttered at some points, forgot a crucial section, and felt like you didn't make the impression you wanted. The common approach would be to ruminate on what went wrong, question your abilities, and perhaps avoid similar situations in the future. The Stoic approach is completely different. First, you fully accept what happened without emotional resistance. It wasn't the outcome you wanted, but it was the outcome that occurred, and fighting reality is always a losing battle. Second, you analyze the experience like a scientist analyzes data objectively without moral judgment about your worth as a person. Where exactly did my preparation fall short? What presentation skills do I need to develop? How can I better practice for high-pressure situations? What insights into my thought process under stress did this experience reveal? Each of these questions moves you toward future competence rather than unproductive self-criticism. But here's the most powerful aspect of this approach. You begin to see failures not as evidence of limitations, but as valuable information about where to focus your development. Each mistake becomes a specific, personalized teacher. Each rejection becomes a map showing exactly where your areas of improvement lie. Seneca was a master of this art of perceptual transformation. During his career as Nero's advisor, he faced impossible situations where any action could lead to disastrous consequences. Rather than being paralyzed by the inability to control outcomes, he focused entirely on acting according to his principles and drawing wisdom from each experience. When he eventually fell from grace and was forced into exile, he did not become bitter or defeated. He used the time to refine his philosophy, write some of his most influential works, and develop an even deeper understanding of human nature. What could have been the end of his career became an opportunity for contributions that have lasted millennia. This Stoic perspective has a profound effect on your confidence because it eliminates the fear of failure that paralyzes so many people. When you know you can extract value from any outcome, good or bad, you become much more willing to take intelligent risks and pursue challenging opportunities. You stop avoiding situations where you might fail and start seeking out situations where you can learn. You stop needing constant success to maintain your self-esteem and develop an internal source of value based on continuous growth. You stop fearing other people's opinions because you know that any feedback, positive or negative, contains useful information for your development. But perhaps the most transformative benefit is this: you develop what psychologists call a growth mindset in a much deeper way than any self-help technique can offer. It's not just intellectually believing you can improve, it's having a proven methodology for extracting growth from any experience. Daily practice of this skill begins with small, everyday setbacks. When you miss a beat, instead of getting frustrated, you ask, what insights about my time management does this reveal? How can I use this experience to improve my punctuality? When a conversation doesn't go well, you analyze, where could my communication have been clearer? What nonverbal cues did I miss? How can I listen more effectively next time? Each micro-application of this mindset strengthens your ability to handle larger challenges. You are literally training your mind to see opportunities where others see only problems. It's developing confidence based not on the need for perfection, but on the ability to adapt and continually grow. Marcus Aurelius summed up this approach perfectly. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes a way. This isn't just an inspirational quote, it's a practical recipe for turning any obstacle into a springboard to the next level of competence and confidence. This shift in perspective on failure is just the beginning of a much deeper transformation. In the next chapter, we'll explore how the Stoics used the practice of negative visualization to mentally prepare for any challenge, eliminating the fear of the unknown that undermines so many people's confidence. If you're beginning to see how these principles can revolutionize your approach to challenges, leave a like and prepare to discover one of the most powerful techniques of Stoic mental preparation. Chapter 3. The mental training that eliminates fear is a Stoic technique so powerful that it can eliminate virtually any anxiety about the future, and it works in a way that completely contradicts what popular culture teaches us about positive thinking. Instead of visualizing only the best-case scenarios, the Stoics practiced something called forethought, io malorum, the premeditation of evils, or negative visualization. Before you think this is disguised pessimism, let me explain why this technique is one of the most liberating and confidence-building tools you can master. Anxiety about the future stems primarily from fear of the unknown. Your mind constructs vague, frightening scenarios about what might go wrong, and these nebulous phantoms become far more terrifying than any specific reality. Stoic negative visualization takes these fears and brings them into the light of day, where they can be rationally examined and practically prepared for. It's like a firefighter who studies different types of fires not because he wants them to happen, but because he wants to be fully prepared if they do. Seneca practiced this regularly, imagining scenarios where he would lose his wealth, social standing, or even his life, not because he wanted these things to happen, but because he wanted to ensure that his peace of mind and self-esteem were not dependent on vulnerable external factors. He wrote, "Practice poverty from time to time. Sleep on the floor, wear simple clothes, eat cheap food. Ask yourself, is this what I feared?" Marcus Aurelius used this technique to prepare for the overwhelming responsibilities of empire by The Ultimate Stoic Guide to Building Unshakeable Confidence, Silent Revolution of the Mind. Imagine for a moment that you could wake up tomorrow with such solid confidence that no criticism, rejection, or failure could shake your core. Picture this. You walk into an important meeting, give a crucial presentation, or have a difficult conversation, and your mind remains as calm as a crystal clear lake on a windless morning. There's no anxiety gnawing at your thoughts, no inner voice whispering doubts, no trembling hands or nervous stuttering that used to bother you so much. This isn't an impossible fantasy or the result of years of expensive therapy. It's the transformative power of a philosophy that's over 2,000 years old, tested by history's greatest leaders, refined by humanity's most brilliant thinkers, and now available to you through this definitive guide. Stoicism isn't just some dusty, ancient philosophy stored in university libraries. It's a revolutionary system of thought that shaped emperors like Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the greatest empire in history with unwavering wisdom, strategists like Seneca, who amassed unimaginable riches while maintaining a balanced perspective on what truly matters, and warriors like Epictetus, who turned his experience as a slave into the foundation for one of the most liberating philosophies ever created. But here's the really important thing. These principles worked for people in situations far more challenging than anything you're likely to face. If Marcus Aurelius could maintain his composure while commanding legions and facing devastating plagues, if Seneca remained wise amid the deadly intrigues of Nero's court, if Epictetus found total freedom even in captivity, then you can surely use these same principles to build a confidence that nothing and no one can destroy. The difference between the superficial confidence most people strive for and genuine Stoic confidence is like the difference between a house built on sand and a fortress built on solid rock. Ordinary confidence depends on external factors, approval from others, recent successes, physical appearance, social status. It is fragile, wavering, and disappears the moment these variables change. Stoic confidence, on the other hand, is built on foundations that no one can take away from you. Your character, your ability to choose your responses, your ability to find meaning in any situation. In the following chapters, you will not only learn the theoretical principles of Stoicism, but you will discover how to apply them practically and immediately to transform your relationship with trust. We will see how the dichotomy of control can eliminate 90% of your worries, how the practice of amor fati can transform your greatest failures into your greatest sources of strength, and how Stoic mental preparation can make you feel prepared for any challenge life presents. But before we dive into the specific techniques, I need to make an honest confession. This is not one of those self-help guides that promises instant results without effort. Stoicism requires practice, reflection, and a genuine commitment to personal growth. It's not about faking confidence until you make it. It's about building confidence so real and solid that it becomes an inseparable part of who you are. You're about to discover will fundamentally change how you view challenges, failures, criticism, and uncertainty. Instead of being threats to your confidence, they will become opportunities to further strengthen it. Instead of avoiding difficult situations, you'll seek them out as opportunities to practice and refine your Stoic skills. Instead of relying on external validation, you'll develop an internal assessment system that is infinitely more reliable and sustainable. If you're reading this and feeling a spark of hope, a sense that you've finally found something that can truly make a difference in your life, then you're on the right track. Leave a like on this content to show me that you're committed to this transformative journey, and prepare to discover why some of history's greatest figures considered Stoicism not just a philosophy, but an art form. Chapter 1. The power no one can take from youth. First and most revolutionary discovery you will make on your Stoic journey is this: there is only one thing in the entire universe over which you have absolute control, and that one thing is more powerful than all external forces combined. It is not your physical appearance, not what others think of you, not your financial or social status. It is something far more fundamental and infinitely more valuable: your ability to choose your responses. This is the dichotomy of sea control, the central principle Epictetus identified as the foundation of all human wisdom. He taught that everything in the world falls into two absolute categories: things within our control and things beyond it. True confidence arises when you finally understand this distinction and stop wasting mental energy trying to control the uncontrollable. Think for a moment about how many hours you've wasted worrying about what other people think of you. How many nights of sleep have been stolen by anxiety about outcomes you can't completely determine? How many opportunities have you missed because you focused on factors beyond your control instead of maximizing those within your control? Here's the liberating truth that will change your life. 99% of your mental suffering comes from trying to control things you can't control, and 99% of your real power comes from completely mastering the few things you can control. Let's get specific about what is truly within your control. You can control your thoughts, not the automatic thoughts that arise spontaneously, but how you respond to them, which ones you choose to follow, and how you interpret them. You can control your values, what you consider important, meaningful, and worthy of your attention. You can control your actions, every move you make, every word you speak, every decision you make. You can control your effort, how intensely you dedicate yourself to something, regardless of the outcome. This is your zone of absolute power. It's small compared to all the forces in the world, but it's yours, completely and unassailably. Not even the most powerful person on the planet can invade this territory without your permission. Not even the most extreme circumstances can take it away from you, as Epictetus proved when he developed his philosophy while literally chained as a slave. Now, let's look at what's beyond your control. The past is beyond your control. Every mistake you made, every missed opportunity, every embarrassing moment is etched in history and cannot be changed. The future is largely beyond your control. You can influence it through your present actions, but you cannot guarantee specific outcomes. Other people's actions and opinions are beyond your control. You can try to persuade, influence, or impress, but you cannot control what anyone thinks or does. The economy is beyond your control. Politics is beyond your control. The weather is beyond your control. Genetics is beyond your control. Accidents are beyond your control. Most of the outcomes of your actions are beyond your control. You can plant seeds, but you cannot force the harvest. When you truly internalize this distinction, something magical happens. You stop trying to be a god and start being an extraordinary human. You stop fighting the river of reality and learn to navigate it masterfully. You stop wasting emotional energy on matters beyond your reach and channel all your strength into the domain that is truly yours. But here's the most surprising aspect of the control dichotomy. The more you focus exclusively on what you can control, the more influence you end up having over the things that are technically beyond your control. When you stop obsessively worrying about others' approval and focus on being a person of exceptional character, people naturally begin to respect you more. When you stop trying to force specific results and focus on consistently giving your best, your results improve dramatically. This happens because human nature responds powerfully to authenticity and genuine competence. When you're not desperately seeking external validation, you become more attractive and trustworthy. When you're not anxious about results, you perform better. When you're not trying to control others, you influence more effectively. The daily practice of this distinction is simple but transformative. Every time you feel anxiety, worry, or frustration, ask the fundamental question: is this within my control or outside of it? If it's outside of your control, practice the art of letting go, not passively or defeatistly, but powerfully and intentionally. You are choosing to focus your limited and precious energy where it can make a real difference. If it's within your control, then you have work to do. There's no room for anxiety when you're focused on productive action. There's no time for worry when you're busy maximizing your control points. There's no energy for frustration when you're channeling all your strength into creating real change. Consider Marcus Aurelius, who had to deal with devastating plagues, brutal wars, family betrayals, and the constant pressure of ruling the largest empire in history. In his personal journals, he repeatedly returned to this central principle: you have power over your mind, not external events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He wasn't living in denial about the real challenges he was channeling all his mental and emotional energy into the aspects of these situations where he could truly make a difference. The result was extraordinary leadership during some of the most turbulent periods in Roman history. Seneca even, facing Nero's deadly paranoia and eventually being forced to commit, imagining scenarios where his decisions could lead to devastating consequences. This didn't paralyze him. On the contrary, it helped him develop contingency strategies and maintain proper perspective on the temporary nature of all successes and failures. Let's apply this practically to your life. Imagine you have an important presentation next week and are feeling anxious about how it might go wrong. Instead of trying to force positive thoughts or distract yourself from the anxiety, you would apply Stoic negative visualization systematically. First, you would imagine specific failure scenarios. Maybe you forget an important section of the presentation. Maybe the technology fails. Maybe you are asked a question you don't know the answer to. Maybe the audience seems disinterested or hostile. Instead of running away from these thoughts, you explore them fully. But here's the crucial part. For each negative scenario, you develop a specific, constructive response. If you forget in a section, how can you recover gracefully? If technology fails, what alternatives do you have prepared? If you don't know how to answer a question, how can you honestly admit it in a way that demonstrates integrity and a willingness to learn? The result of this mental preparation is extraordinary. First, you eliminate fear of the unknown because you've made the unknown known. Second, you develop real confidence based on real preparation. Third, you train your mind to see solutions instead of just problems. Most importantly, you develop what psychologists call tolerance of uncertainty, the ability to feel comfortable even when you can't control or predict outcomes. This is a fundamental skill for lasting confidence because life is inherently uncertain, and people who need reassurance to feel confident are always at the mercy of external circumstances. Negative visualization also has a profound effect on your appreciation for the present. When you imagine losing things you currently take for granted, your health, relationships, professional opportunities, you develop a deeper gratitude for these blessings. Paradoxically, imagining your loss makes you value them more as you experience them. As Epictetus, who had literally experienced the worst-case scenario as a slave, taught this technique with an authority born of lived experience. He knew there was no external situation so bad that it couldn't be endured with the right mental attitude. His confidence came not from favorable circumstances, but from his certainty that he could maintain his dignity and purpose regardless of what happened externally. But negative visualization goes beyond preparing for specific failures. It includes regular contemplation of mortality, the famous Stoic memento mori, not as a morbid practice, but as a way to maintain perspective on what truly matters and to eliminate trivial concerns that consume precious mental energy. When you truly internalize that your life is finite and that all your successes and failures are temporary in the context of eternity, you stop taking the small, everyday humiliations and setbacks so seriously. You develop a perspective that is simultaneously humble and empowering. Humble about the brevity and fragility of human life. Empowered about your ability to live with meaning and dignity regardless circumstances. Regular practice of this technique begins with short sessions of visualization. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes regularly to imagine challenging scenarios you might face. Don't torture yourself with catastrophic fantasies, but realistically explore difficult situations and develop constructive responses. For example, if you're worried about financial security, imagine losing your current job. How would you respond? What skills could you develop now to become more resilient? What simpler lifestyle could you adopt if necessary? What opportunities might this scenario reveal that you don't currently see? If you're anxious about a relationship, imagine it ending. How would you maintain your dignity and integrity? What aspects of yourself would you develop regardless? How would you use this experience to become a better partner in the future? The goal isn't to become pessimistic or fatalistic, but to develop a confidence that doesn't depend on external circumstances remaining favorable. It's to build an inner fortitude that can weather any external storm. This mental preparation technique is fundamental, but it works best when combined with a deep understanding of the Stoic virtues that form the foundation of a confident life. In the next chapter, we'll explore the 4 cardinal virtues that the Stoics considered more important than any external achievement, and how to systematically develop them. If you're feeling the transformative power of these mental techniques, leave a like and prepare to discover the ethical framework that underpins all genuine confidence. Chapter 4. The 4 pilasters of unshaken confidence. Every solid structure needs reliable foundations, and Stoic confidence is built on 4 fundamental pillars that ancient philosophers identified as the cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These are not just abstract moral concepts. They are practical, developable qualities that form the basis of genuine and lasting self-esteem. The difference between confidence based on virtues and confidence based on external achievements is like the difference between a building built on solid rock and one built on shifting sand. Achievements can be lost, appearances can change, status can fade, but the virtues you develop become a permanent part of who you are. Wisdom, the art of seeing. First virtue. Wisdom is not about accumulating information or having all the answers. It is about developing the ability to see situations clearly, without the distortions created by intense emotions or personal desires. It is the ability to distinguish between what is important and what is trivial, between what you can control and what you cannot. Marcus Aurelius demonstrated this practical wisdom when he wrote in his personal journals, "Much of what we say and do is inessential. If you can eliminate this, you will have more time and more peace of mind." So ask yourself each moment, is this necessary? People with this form of wisdom develop a confidence based on clarity. They are not easily manipulated by social pressures, because they can distinguish between genuinely important expectations and artificial ones. They are not devastated by criticism because they can separate useful feedback from destructive opinions. They are not paralyzed by decisions because they have developed clear criteria for evaluating options. The daily practice of wisdom begins with regular reflection. Take time to analyze your experiences without emotional judgment. When you feel troubled by something, ask, what aspects of this situation are objective facts, and what aspects are my subjective interpretation? This simple distinction can eliminate a surprising amount of unnecessary suffering. Also develop the habit of questioning your assumptions. Often our confidence is undermined by unexamined beliefs about how the world works or what other people really think. Stoic wisdom teaches us to examine these beliefs with curiosity rather than automatically accepting them. Courage, facing what must be faced. Added the second virtue, courage, goes far beyond physical bravery. It is the willingness to face uncomfortable truths, have difficult conversations, and persist in important values even when it is costly to do so. It is the quality that allows you to act according to your principles, regardless of fear or discomfort. Epictetus taught that real courage is the willingness to forfeit anything external to maintain your inner integrity. No man is free who is not master of himself, he said, pointing out that true courage often means resisting social pressures or personal temptations that would lead us away from our values. A person with developed stoic courage does not avoid necessary and uncomfortable situations. They do not postpone difficult conversations until they become necessary, nor crises. It doesn't compromise important values for temporary convenience. This approach builds trust based on integrity. You can trust yourself because you know you'll do the right thing even when it's difficult to develop this form of courage. Start by identifying areas in your life where you're avoiding necessary actions out of fear or discomfort. Maybe it's a conversation about boundaries in a relationship, a career decision you've been putting off, or a destructive habit that needs to be addressed. Practice intentionally facing small discomforts. This might include having honest conversations about sensitive topics, standing up for your opinions when they're unpopular but important, or persisting in valuable goals even when progress is slow and difficult. Justice, contributing to the greater good. The third virtue, justice, involves your relationship with others and the broader community. It's not just about following laws or rules, but about contributing positively to the well-being of others in ways consistent with your values and abilities. Seneca demonstrated this virtue by using his wealth and position to educate and help others, even when it was politically risky. He understood that genuine confidence comes partly from knowing you are a positive force in the world, not just someone focused solely on personal gain. People who practice stoic justice develop a confidence based on contribution. They know they have value because they offer real value to others. They don't need to sell themselves or artificially promote themselves because their actions speak for themselves. They build relationships based on genuine reciprocity rather than manipulation or need. To develop this virtue, identify specific ways you can contribute positively to the lives of others using your unique skills and resources. This could be professionally through high-quality work, personally through caring relationships, or communally through service or advocacy. Also practice the skill of seeing situations from the perspective of others. Before making decisions that affect others, honestly consider how your actions will impact their well-being. This broader perspective not only makes you a better person, but it builds a form of confidence, based on knowing that you carefully consider the impact of your actions. Temperance, intelligent self-mastered. Fourth virtue. Temperance is about intelligent self-control. It is not rigid repression of all pleasures, but the ability to make decisions based on long-term values rather than short-term impulses. It is the quality that allows one to maintain consistency toward important goals. Marcus Aurelius practiced temperance by maintaining rigorous personal disciplines. Even though he was literally the most powerful man in the world, he could have indulged any whim, but he understood that genuine self-control was the foundation of every other virtue. A person with developed temperance builds confidence through dependability. They can trust themselves to follow through on commitments, maintain personal standards, and remain focused on important goals even when attractive distractions arise. This self-reliance naturally extends to confidence in broader capabilities. To develop temperance, start by identifying areas where short-term impulses regularly sabotage long-term goals. This might include eating habits, technology use, financial spending, or time management. Practice intentionally creating small self-control challenges. This might include occasional fasting, regular exercise even when you don't feel like it, or dedicating consistent time to important projects, even when more enjoyable activities are available. The synergy of virtues, the most powerful aspect of these virtues, is how they reinforce each other. Wisdom helps you identify which courageous actions are truly necessary. Courage allows you to implement wise insights even when it's difficult. Justice directs courage toward purposes that benefit others besides yourself. Temperance provides the discipline necessary to practice all the other virtues consistently. Together, they create a form of confidence that cannot be shaken by external circumstances because it is based on qualities no one can take away from you. It's a confidence that strengthens over time because virtues, unlike natural talents or external opportunities, can always be developed more deeply. These four virtues form the ethical framework that underpins all genuine trust, but they need to be dynamically applied to the specific situations you face. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to use Stoic principles to navigate challenging relationships and maintain your trust. Trust even when others try to undermine it. If you see how these virtues can transform your approach to life, leave a like and get ready to discover how to apply them to the complexities of human relationships. Chapter 5. Relationships without emotional dip and DONC. Human relationships are often where our confidence is most tested and where we most easily lose our centeredness. The need for approval, the fear of rejection, and the tendency to base our self-worth on how others treat us can turn even the most competent people into anxious and insecure versions of themselves. Stoicism offers a revolutionary approach to relationships that keeps your trust intact while enabling genuine, deep connections. The key is understanding the difference between loving someone and needing someone, between valuing relationships and being dependent on them for your emotional stability. Seneca articulated this principle perfectly when he wrote, "Every new beginning comes from the end of some other beginning." He understood that true human connection is only possible when you enter relationships as a complete person, not as someone seeking to be completed by another. The fallacy of emotional dip and DNC. Popular culture teaches us that intense, emotionally dependent relationships are signs of deep love. Stoicism reveals this as a destructive illusion. When your peace of mind depends on another person's actions, mood, or approval, you are not loving, you are using that person as an emotional drug. This dependence creates a toxic dynamic where you constantly monitor the other person's behavior, interpret every gesture as evidence of how they feel about you, and modify your own behavior to maintain their approval. The result is that you lose your authenticity, they lose respect for you, and the relationship becomes a source of constant anxiety rather than joy. Marcus Aurelius, while deeply valuing his family and friends, maintained a clear perspective on the temporary nature of all human connections. "Loss is nothing but change, and change is nature's delight," he wrote, reminding himself to love fully without clinging desperately. Loving without possessive. The Stoic approach to relationships is based on what we might call detached love, a form of caring that is intense but not possessive, deep but not dependent. You love the person as they are, not as an extension of your emotional needs. This doesn't mean being emotionally distant or indifferent. On the contrary, when you're not constantly worried about your own emotional security in the relationship, you can truly be present for the other person. You can listen without filtering everything through your insecurities. You can offer support, without hidden motivations of validation. Epictetus taught this approach through his own experience with loss. He said, "When you kiss your child, or your wife, say you are kissing a mortal human being, then you will not be disturbed if they die." This sounds harsh on the surface, but it is profoundly liberating. When you accept impermanence, you more deeply value the time you have. Maintaining your identity in relationships. One of the biggest challenges in relationships is maintaining your individual identity while building genuine connection. Many people mistakenly believe that love means merging identities, compromising values, or sacrificing personal goals to maintain harmony. Stoicism teaches the opposite. You best serve relationships by being a strong, authentic version of yourself. This means maintaining your values even when others disagree, pursuing your goals even when it requires time away from others, and being honest about your needs even when it's inconvenient. This approach may initially seem selfish, but it's actually the foundation of healthy, lasting relationships. When you don't sacrifice your identity, you don't develop resentment. When you don't compromise your values, you maintain self-respect and the respect of others. When you don't abandon your goals, you continue to grow as a person and have more to offer. Dealing with criticism and relationships inevitably involve conflict and criticism. How you respond to these challenges determines whether they strengthen or weaken your trust and the relationship. The Stoic approach to criticism is to first ask, is there truth in this criticism that can help me grow? If there is, you acknowledge it as a gift, regardless of how it was delivered. If there isn't, you let it pass without emotional distress, understanding that it says more about the critic than about you. For conflicts, Stoics focus on what they can control: their own actions, words, and attitudes. You can't control how the other person responds, but you can control how you present yourself. You can be honest without being cruel, firm without being aggressive, clear about your needs without being manipulative. Marcus Aurelius dealt with difficult people by remembering, whenever you want to rejoice, consider the good qualities of your companions. This isn't naivete, it's a practical strategy for maintaining your own peace of mind while navigating challenging relationships. Setting healthy boundaries aren't about keeping people apart, they're about keeping your integrity intact. A well-established boundary is like a fence around a garden. It doesn't exist to exclude, but to protect what's growing within. People with Stoic confidence set boundaries based on values, not emotions. They decide what behaviors they will accept based on what serves their values and long-term goals, not what feels good in the moment. For example, if you value honesty, you set a clear boundary against relationships where lying is tolerated. If you value personal growth, you limit time spent with people who constantly discourage your goals. If you value peace of mind, you set boundaries against unnecessary drama. The important thing is to communicate these boundaries clearly and maintain them consistently, not as punishment for others, but as protection for your own values and well-being. Turning rejection into and when relationships end, or when you are rejected, the natural tendency is to question yourself. The Stoic perspective transforms rejection into useful information about compatibility and fit. If someone doesn't value what you offer, it doesn't mean you offer less value, it means you're not a good fit. As Seneca observed, it is not that we have so little time, but that we waste so much of it. Applied to relationships, this means that time spent trying to force incompatible connections is time that could be used to build genuinely mutual relationships. This perspective eliminates the need to convince someone of your worth or to change fundamental aspects of yourself to maintain relationships. You become selective instead of desperate, focused on quality instead of quantity. The freedom to love genuinely when you don't need relationships for your emotional stability. You are free to love genuinely. You can celebrate others' successes without envy because your self-worth isn't dependent on comparison. You can support others' dreams even when it means less time together because you're not using the relationship to fill emotional voids. This form of love is rare and precious precisely because it is given freely, not out of necessity. It's the kind of love that transforms both the giver and the receiver because it is based on strength rather than weakness. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to apply these Stoic principles specifically to the professional environment, where trust is constantly tested by competitive pressures, criticism from supervisors, and the need to perform in high-pressure situations. If you see how this approach can transform your relationships, leave a like and get ready to discover how to maintain your confidence in the professional world. Chapter 6. Leadership and Professional Confidence. Professional environment is an extraordinary laboratory for testing and developing Stoic confidence. It's where your skills are constantly evaluated, where you must perform under pressure, where politics and personalities intertwine with technical competence, and where financial results can drastically affect your quality of life. Most people approach professional challenges with a mindset of scarcity and constant comparison. They see colleagues as competition, supervisors as judges of their personal worth, and professional failures as evidence of inadequacy. This approach creates a cycle of anxiety that sabotages performance and satisfaction. Stoicism offers a powerful alternative based on genuine competence, valuable contribution, and leadership by example. When you apply Stoic principles to your work, you become the kind of professional others naturally respect and seek for leadership, regardless of their formal title. Competence as a Fiondiatuan. The first responsibility of any Stoic professional is to develop true competence in their field, not superficial or political competence, but genuine mastery of the skills and knowledge necessary to contribute significant value. Seneca, despite his wealth and political connections, devoted considerable time to the continuous study and refinement of his skills as a writer, philosopher, and counselor. He understood that genuine confidence in one's work comes from knowing that one can end to deliver real results, not just navigating relationships or superficially impressing. This approach eliminates much of the professional anxiety because you know you have something solid to offer. When you are questioned or criticized, you can objectively evaluate it against your actual knowledge and skills. When you compete for opportunities, you do so based on documented competence, not empty self-promotion. The practice of developing real competence requires brutal honesty about your current strengths and limitations. Instead of pretending to know things you don't or avoiding areas where you are weak, you identify specific gaps and work systematically to fill them. Contribution over originality. One of the most liberating aspects of the Stoic approach to work is focusing on contribution rather than recognition. Instead of working primarily to impress others or earn praise, you work to deliver real value to the organization and its stakeholders. Marcus Aurelius demonstrated this by focusing intensely on his responsibilities as emperor, even when much of his work went unseen or unappreciated by the public. He wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, say to yourself, I have to go to work as a human being." This perspective has several practical benefits. First, when you focus on delivering real results rather than managing perceptions, you often achieve both. Solid results naturally lead to recognition over time. Second, you develop intrinsic satisfaction with work well done, regardless of how much attention it receives. Third, you become less vulnerable to organizational politics and management changes. When your reputation is based on consistent contribution and documented competence, you have more professional stability than people whose position depends on specific relationships or perceptions that can change quickly. Leadership by EX teaches that true leadership comes from personal example, not from formal authority or manipulative charisma. You influence others through the consistent quality of your work, the integrity of your interactions, and the way you handle challenges and pressures. Epictetus, even as a slave, exercised a profound form of leadership through his character and wisdom. People sought him out not because he had formal power, but because he demonstrated a way of life that they admired and wanted to emulate in the professional environment. This means being the person others can count on for quality work, honesty about challenges, and maintaining high standards even when no one is watching. It means being someone who raises the level of the team through example, not through criticism or micromanagement. This form of leadership is especially powerful because it is based on genuine respect rather than fear or obligation. People choose to follow you because they value what you represent, not because they are forced by organizational hierarchy, neighboring criticism, and fedbevisikatha. Professional environment involves constant feedback, both formal and informal. How you receive and process criticism can make the difference between continued growth and defensive stagnation. The Stoic approach to professional feedback is to first separate the useful information from the emotional packaging. Even criticism, delivered poorly or with questionable motivations, can contain valuable insights into how to improve your performance. When you receive negative feedback, the first Stoic question is, what specific aspects of this criticism can help me be more effective? Instead of focusing on how the criticism was delivered or the person's motivations, you extract any useful information and discard the rest. If the criticism is unfair or based on incorrect information, you correct it factually without emotional response. If it is valid, you acknowledge it and develop a specific plan for improvement. In both cases, you maintain your dignity and focus on continuous growth. Managing pressure in DHLNS modern work often involves intense pressure and tight deadlines. People without Stoic training often become reactive and anxious under these conditions, which harms both their performance and their mental health. The Stoic approach to professional pressure is to first accept that pressure and uncertainty are normal features of meaningful work. Instead of resisting this reality, you develop systems and mindsets that allow you to function effectively under pressure. This includes breaking large projects down into specific, manageable tasks, focusing on the process rather than just the results, and maintaining perspective on the relative importance of different pressures. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, confine yourself to the present. When you're under pressure, the temptation is to try to control or predict all aspects of the situation. Stoic discipline is to focus intensely on what you can control in the present moment and let the rest flow without unnecessary mental resistance. Collaboration. Without CIOMPRMIC, professional work almost always requires collaboration with people who have different styles, values, and goals. The ability to work effectively with diverse personalities without compromising your own integrity is a valuable Stoic skill. This involves finding ways to contribute to team goals while maintaining your own standards and values. You can be flexible about methods and processes without being flexible about quality and ethics. When others on the team have different approaches or priorities, you focus on finding common ground based on shared goals rather than trying to convert everyone to your way of working. You influence through example and results, not through argument or politics. Building professional RSA of the modern career is full of uncertainties, technological changes, corporate reorganizations, economic fluctuations, and constantly evolving skills requirements. Stoic professional resilience is based on adaptability and continuous growth rather than false security. This means keeping your skills current, not out of anxiety about the future, but out of intrinsic satisfaction with increasing competence. It means building professional relationships based on mutual value rather than political expediency. It means maintaining a financial and lifestyle perspective that doesn't make you overly dependent on any specific job. When inevitable professional changes occur, you are prepared not because you predicted the future, but because you have developed the ability to adapt and contribute value in changing circumstances. In the next chapter, we will explore how to apply Stoic principles to overcome specific fears that limit potential: fear of public speaking, fear of rejection, fear of failure, and other common obstacles to confident expression. If you see how these principles can transform your professional life, leave a like and prepare to face and overcome fears that have been limiting your growth. Chapter 7. Conquering fears that limit your potential. There is a fundamental difference between people who live expansive, fulfilling lives and those who remain stuck in comfort zones that become stagnation zones. This difference isn't talent, luck, or circumstances. It's the willingness to face fears that limit potential, rather than allowing those fears to determine life choices. Stoicism offers a systematic framework for identifying, understanding, and overcoming fears that keep you small, not through false bravado or forced optimism, but through rational analysis, practical preparation, and the gradual building of real competence in areas you previously avoided. The anatomy of limiting fears that limit potential are rarely about real physical dangers. They are about potential emotional wounds, humiliation, rejection, public failure, social judgment. These fears are particularly insidious because they are vague enough to seem enormous and specific enough to seem probable. Marcus Aurelius faced fears about the enormous responsibilities of empire, about making decisions that could affect millions of lives, about failing in circumstances where failure had historic consequences. He overcame these fears not through denial, but through clear analysis and prepared action. What we fear to do is usually what we most need to do, he wrote, recognizing that real growth almost always requires moving through psychological discomfort. Fear of public speaking. Fear of public speaking is one of the most common and limiting fears people face. It impedes effective presentations, leadership in meetings, meaningful networking, and the expression of valuable ideas. It is also a fear that can be systematically overcome through Stoic application. The first step is to rationally analyze what exactly you fear. It is rarely the physical act of speaking. It is usually fear of negative judgment, of appearing incompetent, of being rejected or humiliated. When you identify specifically what you fear, you can develop specific strategies to deal with these possibilities. The Stoic approach begins with extremely rigorous preparation. You don't try to overcome fear through empty confidence. You build confidence through real competence. This means knowing your material so deeply that you can discuss it conversationally, practicing your presentation until it flows naturally, and preparing responses to potential questions or objections. Second, you practice negative visualization, specific to public speaking. Imagine scenarios where your presentation doesn't go perfectly. You forget a section, the technology fails, someone asks a hostile question, or you make a factual error. For each scenario, develop a specific and dignified response. If you forget something, how do you recover gracefully? If the technology fails, what alternatives do you have prepared? If someone asks a hostile question, how do you maintain composure and respond professionally? If you make a mistake, how do you acknowledge it and correct it without losing credibility? Third, you reframe the purpose of public speaking. Instead of focusing on impressing the audience or avoiding judgment, you focus on contributing real value. When your primary goal is to help or inform others, you naturally become less self-conscious and more focused on the message. Fear of rejection. Fear of rejection prevents people from pursuing meaningful relationships, professional opportunities, and creative projects. Like other limiting fears, it is based on catastrophizing the idea that rejection would be unbearable or devastating to self-esteem. The Stoic perspective on rejection is radically different. Rejection is information, not a judgment of personal worth. When someone rejects your idea, proposal, or approach, they are communicating incompatibility or lack of interest, not a deficiency in your value as a person. Seneca dealt with constant political rejection and eventually faced the ultimate rejection from Nero, which resulted in his forced death. He maintained perspective by remembering that it is not that life is short, but that we waste so much of it, applied to the fear of rejection. This means that time spent avoiding possible rejection is wasted time that could be used to find genuine connections. The Stoic practice for overcoming fear of rejection includes gradual and systematic exposure. Start by intentionally seeking small, low-risk rejections. Make requests that you expect to be denied just to practice experiencing rejection without emotional trauma. Ask for discounts at stores where they are rarely given. Propose ideas and meetings that may not be accepted. Invite interesting people for coffee even when you're not sure they'll say yes. The goal is not to accumulate rejections, but to desensitize yourself to the emotional discomfort they cause. Fear of failure. Fear of failure is perhaps the most paralyzing of limiting fears because it is based on the idea that failure reveals fundamental inadequacy. Popular culture exacerbates this by celebrating only successes and hiding the failed attempts that precede any significant achievement. The Stoic approach to failure is to see it as a teacher, not a judge. Each failure contains specific information about what doesn't work, what skills need to be developed, and what strategies need to be refined. Epictetus turned his most extreme failure being enslaved into the basis for one of the most liberating philosophies in history. He didn't deny the harshness of the experience, but drew from it insights into the nature of freedom, dignity, and human strength that have benefited millions of people for millennia. To apply this practically, redefine failure as a costly learning experience. When a project doesn't achieve its goals, when a relationship ends, when a career strategy doesn't work, your first question is, what specific insights did this experience offer me? Instead of generalizing about your limitations, I'm not good at relationships, you analyze specifically, I need to develop better communication about expectations. Instead of avoiding similar risks in the future, you use the lessons learned to take smarter, more informed risks. Fear of social judgment. Fear of social judgment impedes authentic expression, unconventional choices, and the pursuit of goals that don't align with social expectations. It's based on the idea that social approval is necessary for self-esteem, and that disapproval is detrimental to well-being. Marcus Aurelius, despite being literally judged by the entire population of the empire, maintained perspective on the fundamental irrelevance of public opinion to matters of character and purpose. You have power over your mind, not external events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The Stoic practice for reducing fear of social judgment begins with clarity about your own values and priorities. When you know specifically what you consider important and why, outside opinions become interesting information, but not determinative of your choices. Second, you distinguish between useful and irrelevant judgment. Feedback from people with relevant expertise and informed perspectives is valuable. Opinions from people who don't know your situation or share your values are simply social noise. Third, you practice making small decisions based on your values even when they diverge from social expectations. This might include dressing in a way that expresses your personality, choosing activities you genuinely enjoy rather than socially impressive ones, or expressing well-founded opinions even when they are unpopular. Building courage through most important aspect of overcoming limiting fears is understanding that courage is not the absence of fear, it is action despite fear. You don't wait until the fear disappears to act. You act while experiencing fear, and gradually the fear diminishes through repeated experience. Stoic practice is to begin with small, gradual actions that move you toward your goals despite discomfort. Each small action builds evidence that you can function effectively even while experiencing fear, which gradually expands your comfort zone. Most importantly, you develop the ability to distinguish between useful fear, which signals real danger, and limiting fear, which prevents necessary growth. This distinction allows you to be appropriately cautious when necessary while still seeking opportunities for expansion and growth. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to integrate all of these Stoic principles into a daily system of practices that sustains and strengthens your confidence consistently over time. If you're feeling the transformative power of facing fears instead of avoiding them, leave a like and get ready to discover how to make these practices a natural and sustainable part of your daily life. Chapter 8. Daily Rituals for Continuous Estarangi Takanaji. The difference between knowing Stoic principles intellectually and experiencing their actual transformation lies in consistent daily practice. Just as physical strength requires regular exercise, Stoic confidence requires mental and emotional rituals that gradually reinforce your ability to maintain perspective, make wise decisions, and respond to challenges with composure. The great Stoics of history weren't naturally more confident or less prone to anxiety than you. They developed systems of daily practices that gradually strengthened their ability to live according to their values, regardless of external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius demonstrated this through his personal journals, where he recorded reflections, reminders, and mental exercises that helped him maintain a stoic perspective amid the enormous pressures of ruling an empire. Seneca dedicated regular time to philosophical contemplation and self-examination. Epictetus developed specific exercises to train the mind to distinguish between what is and is not under our control. The morning ritual, mental preparation for the day. Starting each day with intention and mental preparation is perhaps the most impactful practice you can develop. The first thoughts and activities of the day set the mental and emotional tone for everything that follows. The Stoic morning ritual begins with what Marcus Aurelius practiced, reflection on the day ahead, and mental preparation for likely challenges. This is not anxious worry about what might go wrong, but systematic preparation to respond virtuously to any situation. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes each morning for this process. First, review your priorities for the day, identifying the most important tasks and the values you want to demonstrate. Second, anticipate potential challenges or difficulties and visualize yourself responding with the Stoic virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. If you have a difficult meeting, visualize yourself listening wisely, speaking honestly, and maintaining composure, regardless of how others respond. If you have tight deadlines, mentally prepare yourself to focus on what you can control and let go of anxiety about specific outcomes. Third, choose a specific Stoic phrase or principle to carry with you throughout the day. This could be a quote from Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, or Epictetus that applies specifically to the challenges you anticipate. When stressful situations arise, you have a specific mental tool for maintaining perspective. Practice of the dichotomy of Sio and Tiro throughout the day. Regularly practice the fundamental distinction between what is and is not within your control. This becomes a mental habit that prevents unnecessary anxiety and directs your energy toward productive actions. Every time you feel tension, frustration, or worry, pause for a moment and ask, what aspects of this situation are within my control, and which are outside of it? For the aspects within your control, develop specific actions. For the aspects outside of your control, practice consciously letting go. For example, if you're worried about a presentation next week, identify specifically what you can control, your preparation, practice, research, and discuss the audience, and develop supporting materials. Focus intensely on these aspects. For what you can control, such as the audience's specific reaction or questions that may be asked, embrace uncertainty and trust your preparation. This practice gradually trains your mind to automatically distinguish between problems that require action and concerns that require acceptance. The result is a dramatic reduction in anxiety and a corresponding increase in productivity and peace of mind. Evening examination, reflection, and layer. Seneca practiced an afternoon ritual of reflection on the day, examining his actions, decisions, and emotional responses with honesty, not as destructive self-criticism but as an objective analysis to identify patterns and opportunities for growth. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes before bed for this process. First, review the day's main events without emotional judgment. What situations tested your virtues? How did you respond to challenges, criticisms, or opportunities? Second, identify specific moments where you applied Stoic principles effectively. When did you maintain composure under pressure? When did you focus on what you could control instead of worrying about the uncontrollable? When did you act according to your values even when it was difficult? Third, identify areas for improvement without Where did you react emotionally instead of responding rationally? Where did you waste energy on things beyond your control? What opportunities to practice virtues might you have missed? Fourth, draw specific, applicable lessons. How can you better prepare for similar situations in the future? What mental exercises or practices can strengthen areas where you struggle today? Meditation on impermanency. One of the most transformative practices of Stoicism is the regular contemplation of the temporary nature of all things. This isn't morbid thinking, but a way to maintain perspective on what truly matters and cultivate gratitude for the present once a week. Dedicate time to contemplating the impermanence of aspects of your life that you tend to take for granted. This can include your health, relationships, professional opportunities, even your own life. The goal isn't to create anxiety about loss, but to increase your appreciation for the present and reduce excessive attachment to things that will inevitably change. When you truly internalize that everything is temporary, you stop wasting time on trivial concerns and focus on what genuinely matters. This practice also develops the courage to take appropriate risks. When you accept that change is inevitable, it becomes less daunting to initiate intentional changes that align your life with your values. Specific virtue exercises. In addition to general practices, develop specific exercises to strengthen each of the four cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. For wisdom, practice questioning your assumptions regularly. Choose a belief or opinion that you hold strongly and examine it objectively. What evidence supports it? What alternative perspectives might you be overlooking? How does this belief affect your decisions and behaviors? For courage, identify an action you've been avoiding out of fear or discomfort. Develop a plan to gradually address it, starting with small steps that build your capacity and confidence. For justice, look for opportunities to positively contribute to the well-being of others. This could be professionally through work, personally through caring relationships, or communally through volunteer service. For temperance, practice self-control in small but meaningful areas. This could include dietary discipline, regular exercise, controlled use of technology, or careful management of time and energy. Continuous study and reflection. The Stoics valued continuous learning not only about philosophy but also about human nature, history, and practical principles for living well. Dedicate regular time to studying classical Stoic texts and applying their insights to your contemporary life. This doesn't have to be academic or overly formal. It can be as simple as reading a short passage from Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, or Epictetus each day and reflecting on how it applies to your current challenges. Keep a journal where you record insights, experiences applying Stoic principles, and reflections on your progress. This journal creates a personalized resource you can refer to during difficult times and a way to document your growth over time. Community and diocese. While Stoicism emphasizes inner strength and emotional independence, this does not mean social isolation. Look for opportunities to discuss Stoic principles with others who share your interests. Interest in personal growth and virtuous living. This can include local study groups, online communities, or simply conversations with friends and family about practical philosophy and character development. Discussing these concepts with others deepens your understanding and provides additional perspectives on practical application. The continuous journey. It's important to understand that developing Stoic confidence is an ongoing journey, not a final destination. Even the greatest Stoics in history faced daily challenges in applying these principles and maintained humility about their progress. The goal is not perfection, but consistent progress. Each day offers opportunities to practice virtues, apply principles, and strengthen your ability to live according to your highest values. In the final chapter, we will explore how to integrate all these elements into a unified vision of Stoic living that sustains confidence not only in moments of success, but especially during periods of adversity and uncertainty. If you're committed to this journey of ongoing transformation, leave a like and prepare to discover how to live with the unshakable confidence that comes from a life aligned with virtue and wisdom. Chapter 9. Living with unshakable purpose. There is a fundamental difference between people who demonstrate situational confidence, competence in specific areas, or bravery in particular moments, and those who radiate a stable presence that remains constant regardless of external circumstances. This second form of confidence comes from something much deeper than skills or successes. It comes from living with clear and unshakable purpose. Stoicism teaches that true and lasting confidence emerges when you align your daily life with higher principles that transcend immediate self-interest. When you live for something greater than personal comfort or individual gain, you develop an inner strength that cannot be shaken by temporary setbacks or external criticism. Discovering your unique role. Marcus Aurelius faced the challenge of finding meaning and purpose amid the overwhelming responsibilities of ruling an empire. He discovered that his confidence and peace of mind came not from political success or public admiration, but from conscientiously fulfilling his role as a servant of the common good. In his personal writings, he repeatedly returned to the idea that each person has a specific role to play in the great drama of human existence. Remember that you are an actor in a play written by someone else. He wrote, "If it is short, then it is short. If it is long, then it is long. If he wants you to play a papa, play even that role skillfully. And likewise, if a cripple, or a public official, or a common citizen." This does not mean passivity or fatalistic resignation. It means discovering your unique capabilities, core values, and specific circumstances, and then dedicating yourself completely to contributing the greatest possible value within those parameters. To apply this practically, set aside time for deep reflection on these questions. What are your natural strengths and abilities? What problems in the world resonate most strongly with you? What values do you consider so fundamental that you would be willing to make significant sacrifices to maintain them? How can your unique circumstances, your history, relationships, opportunities be leveraged to make a meaningful contribution? The power to serve something. Seneca discovered that his greatest source of strength came not from accumulating wealth or political power, but from using these advantages to educate and benefit others. Even when facing Nero's deadly paranoia, he maintained a clear purpose to contribute to the advancement of human wisdom and character. When you orient your life around serving something greater than personal interests, be it family, community, a specific cause, or broader ideals, you develop a source of motivation that transcends personal comfort. This orientation builds confidence because you know your life has meaning regardless of individual successes or failures. This doesn't mean neglecting your own needs or well-being. Stoicism emphasizes that you must care for yourself to be able to serve others effectively. It means placing your personal needs in the context of a broader purpose. For example, developing your professional skills isn't just about personal advancement. but about increasing your ability to contribute value to your organization and clients. Maintaining your physical and mental health isn't just about personal comfort, but about having the energy and clarity to support family members and causes you value integrity. As Estier and Jettas have taught that the only truly reliable source of self-esteem is the awareness that you are living according to your highest values. No man is free who is not master of himself, he said, pointing out that real freedom comes from the alignment between professed values and everyday actions. This form of integrity creates unassailable confidence because it is based on something that is entirely within your control. Your daily choices about how to act. No matter what happens externally, you can always choose to respond consistently with your principles. The practice of living with integrity requires clarity about your core values and the courage to act according to them, even when it is inconvenient or costly. It also requires regular honesty with yourself about areas where your actions do not align with your professed values. Conduct an honest audit of your current life. Where do your everyday actions reflect your deepest values? Where is there a disconnect between what you say you value and how you actually spend your time and energy? What specific changes would bring your daily life closer to your ideals? Building legacy through everyday acts. The Stoics saw life as an opportunity to contribute to the continued progress of humanity, not through grand, dramatic gestures, but through consistent excellence in ordinary responsibilities and daily interactions. Marcus Aurelius influenced history not only through important political decisions but through his daily dedication to being just, wise, and compassionate in countless small interactions with subjects, advisors, and family. Seneca created lasting impact not only through his philosophical writings, but through his thoughtful mentoring of students and his modeling of Stoic principles in business and relationships. This perspective on legacy builds confidence because you know that each day offers opportunities for meaningful contribution, regardless of how mundane your circumstances may seem. You stop waiting for big opportunities to make a difference and begin to find purpose in everyday excellence. As a parent, your legacy is shaped through thousands of small interactions that teach values and shape character. As a professional, you influence organizational culture and serve customers through consistent standards of quality and integrity. As a citizen, you contribute to the social good through daily choices about how you treat others and what causes you support. Perspective on adversity and failure. You live with clear purpose. Adversity and failure become contextualized differently. Instead of threats to your self-esteem or evidence of inadequacy, they become tests of your character and opportunities to demonstrate your values under pressure. Marcus Aurelius faced devastating plagues, brutal wars, and family betrayals during his reign. He did not deny the difficulty of these situations, but saw them as opportunities to practice Stoic virtues in challenging circumstances. The mind that pursues rational goals, whether it succeeds or not, is honored by the effort itself. This perspective eliminates much of the fear that paralyzes people in challenging situations. When you know that your core value comes from acting virtuously regardless of outcomes, you are free to take appropriate risks and face challenges with courage. Specific failures become data points about what doesn't work, not judgments about your worth as a person. Criticism becomes feedback about effectiveness, not attacks on your identity. Rejections become information about fit and compatibility, not evidence of inadequacy. The practice of living deliberate or while living with unwavering purpose requires daily intention about how you spend time, energy, and attention. Instead of passively drifting through automatic routines, you make conscious choices about how each day contributes to your broader goals and expression of values. This includes regularly evaluating commitments and activities. What aspects of your current life support your purpose and values? What activities are merely distractions or habits that consume precious resources without contributing to what truly matters? It also includes consciously paying attention to the quality of your presence in daily interactions. How do you treat people who serve you in stores and restaurants? How do you respond to colleagues who are struggling with deadlines? How do you interact with family members when you are tired or stressed? These small moments are where purpose is truly lived or betrayed. They are opportunities to practice Stoic virtues of patience, kindness, and integrity in ordinary circumstances. Sustaining purpose through catch-and-GI life inevitably brings changes in circumstances, opportunities, and responsibilities. Unwavering purpose does not mean rigidity about specific methods, but consistency about core values across different situations. Seneca demonstrated this by maintaining his philosophical principles through dramatic changes in fortune, from wealth to exile to return to political persecution. His circumstances changed radically, but his commitments to wisdom, integrity, and service to others remained constant. To sustain purpose through changes in your own life, identify core values that transcend specific situations. If you value personal growth, this might be expressed through formal education in one phase of life, professional development in another, and mentoring others in yet another. If you value contributing to the well-being of others, this might be manifested through parenting in one period, professional leadership in another, and community service in yet another. The result: confidence that transcends CIRCUMC and CIS. When you live with a clear purpose based on deep values, you develop a form of confidence that doesn't depend on external validation or favorable circumstances. You know who you are, why you are here, and how you want to contribute during your limited time on Earth. This confidence manifests as a calm, centered presence that others notice and respect. You don't need to sell yourself or promote yourself because your life speaks for itself. You don't need constant approval because you have an internal source of validation. Based on alignment with purpose, you become someone others naturally trust. Because you demonstrate consistency between professed values and daily actions, you become a source of stability for others because you are not easily shaken by external pressures or circumstantial changes. This is the culmination of the Stoic journey. A life lived with such clear purpose and such deep conviction that nothing external can diminish its fundamental essence. In our final chapter, we will explore how to maintain and deepen this transformation over time, ensuring that the insights you gain become a permanent part of who you are. If you are sensing the depth of this possibility, leave a like and prepare to seal your commitment to a life of unshakable confidence. Chapter 10. Permanent Tyrannis for Metion. We have reached the crucial moment in your Stoic journey, the point where theoretical insights transform into lasting character change. You have discovered the fundamental principles, learned the practical techniques, and glimpsed the possibility of living with unshakable confidence. Now the central question is, how do you ensure that this transformation is not temporary, but becomes a permanent part of who you are? The difference between people who experience superficial change and those who fundamentally transform lies in the depth of their commitment and the consistency of their practice. Stoicism is not a self-help technique you apply when you remember. It is a philosophy of life that requires daily dedication and continuous refinement. The journey is the Dstanito and Marcus Aurelius, even after decades of practicing Stoic philosophy, continued to write reminders to himself about basic principles. His personal journals reveal a man who never stopped working on his character, never assumed he had arrived, never became complacent about his development. This teaches us something crucial. Stoic transformation is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process of daily choices. Each morning you wake up with the opportunity to practice virtues or neglect them. Each interaction offers a chance to apply Stoic principles or react automatically. Each challenge tests your ability to maintain perspective and respond wisely. The beauty of this approach is that it eliminates the pressure of immediate perfection. You don't need to become a Stoic sage overnight. You need only commit to consistent progress, knowing that each small application of principles strengthens your capacity for future application. Creating systems that sustain CHA&G. A lasting transformation requires more than good intentions. It requires practical systems that make virtuous behaviors easier and more natural than alternatives. The habits you develop today determine who you will become tomorrow. First, establish non-negotiable routines that anchor your Stoic practice. This might include morning reflection on principles, evening examination of the day's actions, the study of classical texts, or specific virtue exercises. The key is consistency, not perfection. It's better to practice 5 minutes every day than an hour once a week. Second, create environmental reminders that reinforce your Stoic perspective throughout the day. This might include quotes in your workspace, alerts on your phone with key principles, or physical symbols that remind you to focus on what you can control. Third, develop trigger responses for common challenging situations. When you experience anxiety, what is your first Stoic response? When faced with criticism, how do you automatically apply principles of growth and perspective? When you experience failure, what is your default process for extracting learning? Deepening understanding through study. A superficial knowledge of Stoic principles can help in simple situations, but complex challenges require deep and nuanced understanding. Commit to ongoing study that deepens and refines your application of Stoic philosophy. This doesn't have to be academic or overly formal. It could include regularly reading Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, studying biographies of people who demonstrated Stoic virtues under pressure, or exploring modern applications of ancient principles. Most importantly, connect this study with practical experience. When you read about how Marcus Aurelius dealt with adversity, reflect on how you can apply similar approaches to your own challenges. When Seneca discusses temperance, identify specific areas in your life where better self-control would serve your goals. Keep a journal where you record insights from reading, practical application experiences, and reflections on progress. This document becomes a personalized resource that can guide you through difficult periods and provide tangible evidence of your growth. Finding community in Metion. While Stoicism emphasizes inner strength and emotional independence, this does not mean isolation. Seeking community with others committed to character growth and virtuous living can accelerate and deepen your transformation. This can include local study groups focused on practical philosophy, online communities of Stoic practitioners, or simply friendships with people who share values of integrity, personal growth, and meaningful contribution. Equally valuable is finding mentors, people whose lives demonstrate principles you want to emulate. These don't have to be formal philosophers. They can be professionals who demonstrate integrity under pressure, parents who balance love with discipline, or community leaders who serve causes greater than self-interest. Observe how these people respond to challenges, make difficult decisions, and maintain perspective during stressful times, not to superficially imitate them, but to understand how Stoic principles manifest themselves across different personalities and circumstances. Testing principles. Through ADVRC, why true Stoic strength is only revealed when tested by real difficulty. Periods of comfort can mask character weaknesses that become obvious when pressure is applied. Therefore, don't avoid challenges that test your application of principles. This doesn't mean seeking unnecessary suffering, but accepting that real growth requires movement through discomfort. When opportunities arise to practice courage, choose to face them. When situations test your patience or temperance, see them as training exercises. Each adversity overcome with principles intact strengthens your confidence in your ability to handle future challenges. Each failure navigated with dignity increases your resilience. Each criticism processed constructively enhances your wisdom, contributing to the growth of OTHRS. One of the most powerful ways to solidify your own transformation is to help others on their developmental journeys. Teaching Stoic principles formally or informally forces you to articulate concepts clearly and apply them consistently. This can include mentoring younger colleagues, modeling Stoic virtues for family members, or simply being a source of stability and wisdom for friends during difficult times. When you serve as an example of Stoic living for others, you become more aware of your own consistency. When you teach principles, you deepen your own understanding. When you support the growth of others, you empower your own transformation. Maintaining humility and PRSPCTIF. Paradoxically, one of the hallmarks of genuine Stoic progress is increasing humility about how far you still have to grow. The more you develop wisdom, the more aware you become of the vastness of what you don't know. The more you practice virtues, the more sensitive you become to the areas where you still struggle. This humility isn't discouraging, it's liberating. It removes the pressure to be perfect and allows you to focus on continued progress. It also keeps you open to learning from unexpected sources and receptive to feedback that can accelerate your development. Remember that even the great Stoics of history faced daily struggles with implementing principles. Marcus Aurelius struggled with impatience, Seneca with the temptations of wealth, Epictetus with bitterness over past injustices. Their greatness lay not in the absence of failures, but a continued commitment to growth despite imperfections. The legacy of a life well lived. Ultimately, the reward of Stoic transformation is not personal comfort or external success, but the deep satisfaction of knowing you lived according to your highest values. It's the confidence that comes from integrity, the peace that comes from acceptance, and the joy that comes from meaningful contribution. When you look back on your life, you want to see evidence of steady growth, nourishing relationships, meaningful work, and moments where you chose virtue over expediency. You want to know that you made a positive difference in the lives of others and contributed to the continued progress of humanity. This vision of legacy isn't about public greatness or historical recognition. It's about the daily quality of your choices and the cumulative impact of living with principles. It's about being someone others can trust, someone they can turn to for wisdom, and someone they can learn from by example. Your next step. You've reached the end of this guide with powerful tools for transformation, but this is just the beginning of your Stoic journey. The principles you've learned only gain power through daily application. The confidence you seek only develops through consistent practice. Your next step is simple but crucial. Choose a specific principle or practice that resonates most with you and commit to applying it consistently for the next 30 days. It could be practicing morning mental fitness, applying the dichotomy of control during stressful times, or developing a specific virtue through daily exercises. Don't try to transform everything at once. Choose one change, practice it until it becomes natural, then add the next. Build momentum through small but consistent successes. Remember, you're not just seeking to feel more confident temporarily, you're building a form of confidence that nothing and no one can take away from your confidence based on character, virtue, and alignment with purpose. This is a journey worthy of your best effort and deepest dedication. The transformation you seek is not only possible, but inevitable if you commit to consistently practicing the principles you've learned. Your journey to unshakable confidence begins with the next choice you make. Leave a like to seal your commitment to this transformation. Subscribe to continue receiving insights that will support your journey and take the first step toward the extraordinary life that awaits you. The legacy of a Stoic life as we reach the end of this journey through the fundamental principles of Stoic confidence. It's important to recognize that you haven't finished a course, you've begun a transformation. The words on these pages are just the map. The real journey happens in the daily application of these principles to the complex and challenging realities of your life. Stoicism offers something few personal development systems can, a complete philosophy of life that works equally well in moments of triumph and periods of adversity. It's not a technique for feeling better temporarily. It's a framework for living well permanently. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. Seneca navigated the perilous waters of Roman politics. Epictetus transformed the experience of slavery into liberating wisdom. Each faced challenges most of us will never experience, but the principles that sustain them are precisely the same ones that can sustain you in your own struggles and aspirations. The confidence you are building through this practice is not a facade that can be shattered by criticism or failure. It is an inner fortress built on foundations no one can shake. Your character, your choices, your ability to respond to virtually any situation. Now the choice is yours. You can continue living at the mercy of external circumstances, seeking validation from sources that will inevitably disappoint, allowing limiting fears to dictate the scope of your life. Or you can embark on the most rewarding journey possible, developing a confidence based on wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. If this content resonated with you, if you feel you found something that can truly transform your life, please leave a like to show your commitment to this journey. Subscribe to continue receiving insights that will support your ongoing transformation. Most importantly, take the first practical action today to begin building the extraordinary life that awaits you. Your unshakable confidence begins now. Your stoic journey begins with the next choice you make.